The topic today is COVID-19 and your personality type. And we're going to see more about that. So as I said, again, I introduce myself. My name is Faith Gichanga Osiro. I'm a counseling psychologist and I'm also a trainer. Okay, so the content of today's session will be, I'll have an introduction, and then we will see what are some of the benefits of learning personality type. And I'm going to explain later and say there are many ways that we can look at our personality types. Most of us are counselors here, so we know of the various, we have so many personality theories, but for the sake of our conversations today, we're going to be looking at the MBTI, and it is viewed on those 4 scales. I'm going to talk about that again soon. Okay, so just a quick introduction. Again, as I said, we are mostly counselors, but we also know we have people here who are not counselors. So just an introduction, when we are saying personality, what are we talking about? What are we actually calling that as a personality? So it is the unique way and the unique pattern of the way you think, the way you feel, and the way you behave that persists over time and across situations. So whenever something happens, we always know if it's Faith, we can almost know how Faith is going to react, or her thinking pattern, or how she's going to behave in a situation. So that's the personality, not the one of that sometimes you're out of character and you do something, but just that enduring one that that happens over and over. Yeah. And then, so how do we acquire personality? Again, there is a big debate, we call it philosophy, one of the philosophical dilemmas and questions that we have. We have 2 schools of thoughts. There are people who think it's nature, that we are born with our personality, that it's genetic, and that we have or inherited from our parents or past generations. But then there's also another school of thought that says it is nurture. It is what I learned, what I saw my parents doing, probably what I have seen in the media, what I have, so how the environment has shaped me. It is probably my parents, their parenting style. If they were very strict, I might end up being one and not the other personality. Right? So just as an introduction of when we're talking about personality, what are we talking about and how do we acquire? And then of course, there's also the other school of thought of it's partly nature and it's partly nurture. So that's also something else that some people like to think. Some people have even given percentages. I think there are people who say 60% of one and 40% of the other. So the jury is still out there on that one. Right? Okay, so as I said earlier, there are many ways that we can assess personality types, but for the sake of this conversation, we're going to do the Myers-Briggs type indicator. At this point, I hope that a few of us have an idea of what personality types we are, but if we are not, as we go along, maybe we are going to identify some of the traits that we have, and maybe we're going to see where we fall in one or not the other. Though I will say that just because this presentation was going to be very long if I was going to go through each and every personality. So it's more of just how we are responding. So it's just a bit of a brief of how, what the characteristics are for each, and then how we are responding to it, just for the sake of it not to be a long one. So we're not going to go into in-depth of saying extroverts, how are they, what they do, a lot of characteristics, just a few for us to understand when we say extroverts, who we are referring to. So Myers-Briggs type indicator, which is usually abbreviated as MBTI. So maybe for the future, I'm going to be referring to it as MBTI. It helps us understand our likes. It helps us understand our dislikes, our strengths, our weaknesses, and compatibility with others. The compatibility with others, very important, because as we're going to see, our different personalities sometimes is what make us clash. Yeah. So whether it's compatibility with others, whether it's understanding other people, it's important for us to be able to know our personality type and to be able to differentiate from other people's, but also appreciate the diversity. Now, a point to note is that there's no one best or better personality type than the other. Sometimes we get drawn in that debate of, extroverts are better than introverts, or introverts are better than, so there's no one better or best personality type. There's no ranking for personality types or personality traits. We are just different, and it's in enjoying the diversity that is important. So what are some of the benefits of knowing your personality type? Why do we even bother to know pertinent to what we'll be talking about? Because we are at this place where we need to know which space do we, when we are involved or when we're engaged, gives us most productivity. Where are we most efficient? Time management skills, for each personality. Yeah. It also helps us to understand other people and avoid conflict. Again, during this time, I think we have all seen in the media, and it's not just in Kenya, but across the world, gender-based violence has gone up. Now, I don't want to just be simplistic and say it's just the difference in personality, but for sure we know that personality conflicts have a huge role to play, because we are faced with this one thing. We are put in this one place, and then we have to coexist. And then we've been faced with this, something that we've never been faced with before. So even ways of coping that we have had in the past will not necessarily work, because it's a space we've not been before. So we can find ourselves clashing a lot, right? So it also helps us to understand situations that allow us to perform best. I get to understand my strengths and weaknesses when I learn my personality, and also improve decision making. We're going to see one scale of MBTI that is really important when it comes to decision making, and what do we consider when we are making decisions on the different personalities. All right, so we can begin with just an overview of what this MBTI is, and so it chooses 4 skills. Now, when we say skills, we mean it's a range. It's extrovert. If it's a range of 0 to 100, then we're saying extrovert is, let's say 0 or 1, let's say 1, and then introvert is 100. So we are saying that myself, I'm probably at, let's I'm on a scale. So it doesn't mean it's a dichotomy. It's an either or. It's a scale, and that applies to all of them. So you might find yourself, even though you're an introvert, you have extrovert tendencies. So that's something I'd like us to understand. But usually there's one that is more predominant. And the intuitive type, we're going to see what all this means for those who need to a revision, and also for those who've never come across these terms before, these concepts. And then the third scale is about thinker. We have thinkers and we have feelers. We're going to see the difference between the two. And lastly, the fourth scale is the judging, and that all of them an extreme one side. Well, it can be. There are people who sometimes can be extreme, but usually will lie somewhere in the scale. That's very important. So even when you're saying extrovert, it means that even though I'm an introvert and someone else is an introvert, we might have differing skills. Yeah? I might be more introverted than someone else, or vice versa. So out of these 4 skills, what happens is with this MBTI, we get a combination, and it forms 16 personality types. So for example, you can be introverted, introvert, intuitive, feeler, perceiving. So with these 10 different personality types. But for today, we're not going to look at the specific personality types. I'd want us to look at the skills. What does it mean as an introvert? What does it mean as an extrovert during this time? What does it mean as a sensing type? And what does it mean as being an intuitive? So what I'm going to ask you to do is, as we go along, for those who've never probably taken this test before, if you identify yourself somewhere, maybe you can just say something in the chat. Our moderator, Helen, will be looking at what's going on in the chat, and she will sample a few of what you're saying. As well, if particularly there are some difficulties that you have had in the process of this pandemic because of your personality type, again, please interact with don't interact with people. They do enjoy, especially when they are in a comfortable crowd. They can be very talkative and very outgoing, but within very specific circles and with very specific people. But if you put them in a place where they've never been before, with people they've never been into, they'll probably go sit at a corner, right? So let's look at extroverts during the pandemic. What are some of their strengths? Where are they shining? What challenges are they going through? And maybe we can look at a few strategies to see how they can cope better. So one of the strengths during this time is that they are the ones that we are tasking with creating fun and conversations at home. If a home has only introverts, you can imagine each at their own corner. That is quite something. So we are tasking the extroverts. They're the ones to get us out of our corners. They're the ones to help us do these fun things and have conversations going. Yeah. So because also of their need to socialize with people. So as much as they can socialize with the family, there's still that urge to want to connect with people on the outside. So they'll be very quick to embrace technology. They are the ones who are probably on top of Zoom, or Google Class, and all those other applications and platforms that people are using, so that they can see which one maximizes, their interactions with people. So that's another strength that is probably going to come up when it comes to extroverts. These people, extroverts, are talkative and they wear their hearts on the sleeves. So during this time, we are all aware that there's a lot of anxiety that is going on. People are going through losses of jobs, losing people, and all those. There are emotions that are going on, and extroverts, being extroverts, are able to communicate. So it's very easy to know where an extrovert is during this time in terms of emotions. Let's look at their challenges. I think very obvious. They're really, really struggling with the curfew and the lockdown and the social distancing. Yeah, so because it means that they're not socializing enough. They're struggling with that. I can come and meet someone, maybe we're in a supermarket, and I can't greet them, I can't hug them, and I can only be there for a short time. These are some of the things that they are struggling with. And I think this is the point to say, when we're talking about these challenges, number one is to affirm you that there are circumstances that are making you feel the way you're doing. Not necessarily that you need to get stuck there. If there's something you can do, then you can do it. But it's to tell you that it's normal based on the abnormal circumstances that we are in. So to feel how you're feeling, you don't necessarily have to compare with yourself with an introvert who is, pretty much feeling in their space right now, because you're different. That's their space, and for you, socializing is important, right? So another challenge is that they will get easily bored. Probably the first few days was fun because, it was staying at home and maybe not so workload is decreased. But if we are staying in the house, then it means there's a limit to the extent of activities that we can get involved in, especially the ones that we are used to. Yeah. So at some point, probably by now, it's been over a month, they've already gotten very, very, very bored because of just the same routine over and over and over. They'll also experience challenges working from home, which is something that has been forced upon us at this point because of the social distance. So one of the things they enjoy about probably going to the office is my colleague is there, another colleague is there, and we'll have, there's a social bit even at workplace. So now you have been given your computer and you're sitting at the corner alone and you're expected to work. So they will really, really struggle with that. What are some of the helpful strategies that they can adapt at this point? One of the things is finding new ways of reestablishing social connections. Initially, Zoom, when it came up, and a lot of this Zoom, Skype, and all this a lot of these video platforms were for work meetings. Yeah, but we're finding increasingly that, we are also using them for social connections. Let me give my own example. My parents are back in the village, Moranga, and it's until this time that I realized that we can actually converse on, we do WhatsApp video, but it's always been there, so it's also a time to start seeing which other new ways can we use to reestablish social connections. I can also say that I've had times when I've gathered with a few friends, we are all on our gadgets and probably everyone with their tea and everything, and we are having a purely a social interaction. Right. So the second point also, to be innovative. So they're the routine things that we were used to doing, and probably a lot of them involved going out. But there are also so many other things that we can adopt to be able to keep busy or have fun. So for example, you can start playing games online or offline. I have heard of friends, I've not done that yet, but several people have told me how they are playing online games with their family and friends who are far. I've had people playing charades. I've had people playing, there's another game called Kahoot. So you realize there are other ways that we can interact that even during this time of social distancing. But also an important one, and for most of us being counselors, we know how important this is, just to take time to deeply connect with our family members. It could be your spouse, it could be your children, it could be even your siblings. So this would also be a good time with no excuses of work and other things taking you outside, to just take time to connect with your spouse and children. All right, let's look at the introverts. How are they doing during this time? Most of them are generally fulfilled. So as I said, being alone or being in that space, it energizes them. So by lockdowns and curfews, it means they don't have to interact with the outside world. So they're quite in their element on that point. Also, they are thriving. For those who, I know a lot of us have gone back to work and probably it's more busier than it is. But for those people who work has decreased, there are people who might not be able to work from home as much as others, just because of how their duties are. So they're finding time to read books, to write what they have always wanted to write, to cook. I'm sure you're all seeing on social media, for those who are on Facebook and Instagram, people are coming up with all sorts of projects, and especially cooking. I have seen impressive meals online. And then also WFH means working from home. They're also thriving working from home because they don't need to interact with people, and they like that. So this person is probably able to even accomplish more now that they're working from home than when they were in the office. Some of the challenges that they may be facing is that not all of them are able to be alone. we have our spouses at home, we have our siblings at home, we have the children at home all the time. So for those who are not able to be home by themselves, it also means that they constantly have people around them, and that can be quite draining. The other thing is having to keep up with work and social remote engagements. One of the things that has come up, and I'm sure for those of us who are working from home, we have realized we are having too many phone calls. I guess, in place of the social interaction and video calls. So this can be quite draining. The phone calls are also just social, people checking up on you and wanting to find out how you're doing. So that is quite draining to the introvert. So one of the things, again, we said about introverts is that they don't speak much. So whatever they're going through during this time might be very difficult to know where they are. The reality is a lot of us have struggled with anxiety, and a lot of us have struggled with, other emotions. So it might be difficult to really know where an introvert is during this time in terms of their emotions. Some of the helpful strategies that the introverts can employ is just to be able to trust, even if it's one person or two people, but just have someone you're constantly communicating with. These are different times, and these times have their own stressors. So while any other day would be okay to be just in your corner and do your things, we are facing times where we're having problems. The world is having problems. So much is changing. So it's good to just have someone who you can trust and you can talk to. For those who don't have time to be alone, it's important to establish a structure where you allow yourself a no phone call period or no video. Yeah. Maybe I can also share a personal experience on that. For a while, I was feeling quite overwhelmed. So I had to decide that after 7, I was not going to do any work-related thing. So I'd not attend a webinar, and I'd not obviously host one. And that was okay because I was feeling a bit overwhelmed. So I just decided I'll work from this time to this time, but after that, I will stay away from interaction with the world for a bit, right? Yes, so for introverts, those are some of the things that we can look into. Now, this is how it would look if a couple, there was an introvert and an extrovert. And this is why I'm saying how sometimes we are conflicting. This is part of what conflicts us. One of them is so happy to stay in tonight. That's the introvert, and the extrovert is counting another day of lockdown. So just on a light note. All right, so the second skill, that was the first skill, and I hope we're continuing to talk on the chat. And maybe at this point, I can ask Helen, maybe you can sample some of the comments that have come in so far for the introvert and extrovert before we move on.
Okay, thank you very much, Faith, for that. I'm laughing because it's a very interesting interaction on the chat platform. So clearly the extroverts are missing people, they're missing socializing, they're missing the hugs, they're missing the greetings, they're missing the meetings. They're having a difficult time with social distancing and staying at home and the curfew. I know a few culprits who have been close to the issues of the curfew. And on the other hand, the introverts are clearly having a ball. They're enjoying themselves during this period. Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you all for continuing to participate. For the points that I miss out, because we are the ones who are living this personality types, please share and add on to what I'm talking about. All right, so we can look at the second skill, sensing and intuition. So this is how we gather information from the world around us. Yeah? There's a way we gather information. So the first scale of this, or the first on one extreme is the sensing, and sensing just means using 5 senses. That is what I see, what I hear, what I can taste, what I can touch, etc. So that's how I gather information. So these people tend to pay a great deal of attention to reality, because then if I don't see it, it doesn't exist, you know. So the reality is just based on their five senses. So they tend to focus on facts and details, right? On the other hand, we have the intuitive people. They pay more attention to things like patterns and impressions. They enjoy thinking about possibilities and imagining the future and abstract theories. So these people, just because I can't see it, doesn't mean it doesn't exist. If I can think it, I can make it happen, or it does exist. So that's the difference. So the sensing, they take in information via the five senses. If it does not fall anywhere in the category of the five senses, then it didn't exist for them. It doesn't exist for them. But the intuitive, they're more open to, yes, tell me more. Let's dream. They're dreamers, you know. It might not be the case right now, but I am sure at some point in the future, it can be. So on one end, the sensing type. Let's see how they are doing during this time of pandemic. And again, as we go along, please, if you find yourself in one of these spaces, please send us a chat and let us know your thoughts or your experiences. So one of the strengths of the sensing type is that they are on top of pandemic facts and statistics. These are the people who will tell you how many people in the world have contracted it, how many probably have recovered, how is it in China now, in Kenya. So they have the facts and figures, and that's how they're processing what is going on. Even the economic status, how has it been affected, you know, which country is doing what to help their citizens do better in this hard economic times. They will also be able to come up with systematic approaches of how to respond to the crisis. So for example, if it's at home, they're able to say, okay, this is where we are, because these people are very based on reality. They're like, this is where we are right now. The salary, the money, the money that used to come in, we used to earn, was 100,000. But because of what is happening, either we've been laid off or I've gotten a salary cut. So now that we are at, say, 50,000, what do we need to do? So the sensing type are able to adjust based on reality. They can no longer plan around the 100,000, or they can not sit and say, you know, the pandemic might end in 3 months' time, and then I'll get another job, so let's continue with how we were spending when we were at 100,000. They adjust to reality. Yeah. So these people, the sensing type, do not necessarily adjust well to new ways of doing things. But as a strength, what is familiar, and it's a familiar procedure, that one they're able to take and run with it. So for example, if we are being told we need to wash our hands, so that's something we've been doing. So that's something that they can easily adapt to. Yeah. And let's look at some of the challenges that they may be experiencing. So remember, these people work with facts and figures. And we know when this pandemic began, there was little facts. We didn't know so much about it. So these are people who for a long time probably did not warm up to the idea that this thing is here and it's affecting us. They couldn't, they couldn't see it. They had not heard about it. So there was little known. So they may have experienced a problem and a struggle at the beginning, trying to accept that this virus is here and it's doing 1, 2, 3, and this is what it means. So remember I said earlier on, they struggle with new concepts. So they might struggle with what is this new working from home? How do we do that? What is this social distancing that we've not been doing? They're very good with the procedures that have already been laid out. So you're telling me now I have to start working from home. What does that mean? I have to get a new computer or a laptop. Maybe there are people who use the desktops in the office. So what does that mean? Just the whole adjustment, then working online. So it might have been a challenge for them at the beginning. These people also might be in the center of many debates about the facts of the pandemic. Again, for those who are on social media, It's amazing the debates that are going on in terms of the facts of this pandemic. So we might find that the sensing type are culprits of that, right? So what are some of the strategies that they can employ that will be helpful? Number one is they need to be sensitive and accommodating to different perceptions of what is going on. Yeah. There are people who don't work with facts and figures, but they visualize this problem in another way. So it's good to be accommodating and not just keep throwing facts and figures at people. For themselves, it's also a time for them to allow themselves to see the bigger picture beyond the facts and the figures. Now, remember what I said, they are very based on reality. So right now, there are whatever number of infections in Kenya. It's very, and we are on this lockdown, and we know businesses have suffered and all those negative things that have happened. So sometimes it's difficult for this sensing type to see a better future, are more hopeful. They don't know how to dream. They're not dreamers. They know the here and now. They operate on the here and now. So it can be very depressing because the here and now doesn't look so good at the moment in a lot of the countries. So if you're the sensing type, allow yourself to dream and see beyond the facts and figures. All right, then we have on the other side, the intuitive type. Remember, we have sensing and intuitive. So intuitives, one of the strengths is they're very optimistic. These are the people who keep telling us the pandemic is going to come to an end sooner than later. They're very optimistic. And so, so for themselves, even for the sensing type, they're able to spread some level of optimism. So these people are not afraid of switching and adapting to new ways of doing things. So they will get new and creative ways of doing things. They're not stuck of this is the way we've been doing things. So they're able to adapt to technology very fast. There are people who will find easier to say, and for us counselors, and I think we fall under this category, there are those of us who have for so long have not seen how an online or a teletherapy can work. And for so long we have shunned it. But COVID has come and we are at this time where our clients need us the most, but we cannot be there with them. So what do? So we needed to bridge the gap. So for the intuitive among us, the intuitive type among us, they have already even quickly adjusted and are now using technology. For the sensing type, I say it's something we need to adapt and very quickly because times have changed and with the restrictions that are there, but our clients still need us. So the intuitive are natural innovators. So it's really their time to shine. With everything that is going on, there are so many opportunities for them to innovate. And I think, for example, in this country, we've seen people coming up with masks, people coming up with ventilators. I think it would be a good idea to have just a survey and see if the people behind those were more of intuitive than the sensing type, right? But then there's some challenges as well. These people are dreamers and imaginative, and they are okay to let their mind wander. So they may spend so much time indulging in the conspiracy theories, and I'm sure we've all had one or several that are going around based on what is going on. And while that is okay, it's a debate on its own, but I think it could be at the detriment of dealing with the current issue. There's where it came from and there's the reason why it came, but the fact is that it's here and we need to deal with it. Yeah. So as much as they want to dissect the conspiracy theories, that's okay, but not at the detriment of ignoring the current problem or just ignoring the measures that have been put in. For example, if it's the one we're saying that it's not caused by virus, but it's caused by some technology, does it mean then that these people will stop washing their hands? So that can be a problem, right? The intuitive people can also be too optimistic and end up downplaying the effects of the pandemic. So that can be a problem. It's important, again, to now have the sensing type with their facts and figures to keep telling you this is the reality on the ground, this is spreading and it's spreading fast, and these are the statistics. Yeah. So some helpful strategies for the intuitive type, it's to get a balance between the here and now, and with the optimism. So they're more of optimistic, future optimistic, it will get better, it's not so bad, but it's important to balance that with the current reality, the here and now. How does the space look like? And then get innovating. This is their time to shine. Again, as I said, the problem has come, the pandemic has brought so many problems, and we know innovations are usually an answer to a solution or an answer to a problem. So with the pandemic, so many problems have come up, and so it's their time to shine. All right, so I'll give an opportunity again to Helen. Maybe you can tell us a few of the interactions that are going on in the chat, if any.
Okay, thank you very much, Faith. Yes, there are interactions. Someone is saying, Chinere Okori is saying, I am a strong introvert, but I balance how I respond to situations as they come. I am really enjoying the lockdown and I have accomplished quite a lot. Someone else is saying, Esther is saying, I am an introvert. I like the indoors things now, but once in a while, I like to meet someone to help me get some work done and faster. I connect with the idea of having one friend with which I chat during this lockdown. I find we are getting closer and closer in the cyberspace. I am the sensing type. I followed all the news to a point, and then it was depressing me. So I stayed away those days when I'm feeling down.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Helen. In fact, that person has brought another important challenge that the sensing type will suffer. One of the challenges is that they will end up consuming so much and it overwhelms them, and that's a good case. So thank you very much for sharing all your views. So again, we have a picture on the screen. Again, I said this is why probably couples are fighting because of difference in personalities. The intuitive person who is a dreamer and believes everything can happen. Yes, we can, the kind of yes, we can people. He's saying we need to change the world, but probably the spouse who is more sensing and thinks about the here and now is thinking, how about we do the dishes first? So again, just to show the clash in personalities. All right, so we go to the third skill. It's the thinking and the feeling. So this shows us how we make decisions. Remember I said one of the good things about learning your personality is to know what informs your decision making. Again, there's a lot that goes behind the decision making. There are people who've learned how to do the science of decision making, the steps to decision making, but there's the innate, the personal influence, which is, am I a thinking type or am I a feeling type? So it's how we make decisions. Now, thinkers emphasize on facts and objective data. They are very consistent, they're very logical, and impersonal when weighing a decision. It means that it doesn't matter if the decision I'm making is about my friend or about a stranger. The facts are the facts, and the logic is the logic. I will apply the same across the board. Meanwhile, so it means that they don't use any emotions to arrive at decisions. It's purely out of logic. So feelers, on the other hand, these people almost always consider emotions when arriving at a conclusion. So the facts could be staring at them right in the face, but if making that decision is going to hurt someone, they would not do that. So they are very empathetic people, and that's why I'm going to to begin. So let's look at the thinking type to begin with. So what are some of their strengths during this time? Now, one of the things, as I said, the way a thinking type person will make a decision, it doesn't matter whether you're my friend or not, whether I know you or I don't know you. So it means that for them, emotions take a backseat. Now, sometimes there's a problem with that, but sometimes it is necessary. We are seeing we're at a time where emotions are so high, and almost everything that is being done is subject to debate. Is the money that being used, all of it, like the money that is being used to address COVID in Kenya, is it all of it? Are these numbers the correct numbers? What is happening at the quarantine centers? So we are finding that everything is a subject for debate. Is Kenya doing enough? What about another country? Can we do what another country is doing? Such things. So the good thing about the thinking type, if we have the thinking type at the realm of the leadership steering this, they will be very able to steer it along, because they're able to get along, to carry on with the work, even if there is dissenting views. Yeah. Secondly, they're able to remain calm in the face of crisis. Very contrast to the other extreme. These people, because they just have a way of mastering their emotions, which is sometimes, again, it's good and sometimes it's bad. But we are seeing one of the strengths is that when a crisis happens, and I feel like we are in the face of a crisis right now, they're able to remain calm. So they will not be panicking with as the other people are panicking, which is a strength at this time. Some of the challenges that they will face, or that they're facing, is they will make decisions very impersonally. So for example, we know there was a time when the curfew began in Kenya, we experienced some police brutality. Now, it was very amazing how there were such different views on what was happening. Now, for the thinking type, it's not that they're supporting, but it's more of rationalizing. They're saying, you should not have been outside your home at 7. The rule was that be home at 7. So when something happened to you after 7, you can't really blame. Those are just the consequences of you not being home at that time. So they may look at that. But again, we saw people get hurt. Probably we know someone lost their life. So that can be a challenge when all decisions are being made very impersonally. They also lack empathy, which especially during this time, is quite a challenge, because we know almost all of us are dealing with something. People are dealing with loss, whether it's loss of someone, whether it's a loss of a job, whether it's just loss of freedom, even just the loss of freedom. But we are just experiencing so many losses as we go along. So people are also experiencing anxiety, among many other emotions. So right now, what we need in the world from everyone is empathy. So we call upon our thinking friends, thinking type friends and ourselves to look inwards and try and see where we can marshal at least some level of empathy towards the people around us. Now, again, they may cause conflict at home because they are very firm-minded. So as I said, for thinking type, it is either right or wrong. And it's based on facts. It's not just arbitrary. We have looked at the facts, we have looked at the evidence, and you're either right or wrong. But now we are in unprecedented times. So for example, if you're a parent and you're expecting your child to perform a certain way, or to be reading as much as, maybe they're in class 8 or they're in form 4, they're sitting for a certain exam, and you are really drilling on them to continue working as if things have not changed. But we know realistically, we are all struggling. Even as adults working from home, a lot of us have had to take time to adapt, and some of us are still trying to adapt to that. So it can be a challenge, especially if you're a person in leadership. Maybe you're a boss and you're expecting so much from your subordinates, because you know at the end of the month I will pay you this. So the contract says if I'm paying you this, and you're also delivering your part of the bargain. So that can also be very challenging, and you can come out as very insensitive. Some of the things that the thinking type can do, they need to acknowledge other people's feelings and emotions. They also need to try and get in touch with their own feelings and emotions. Now, this is a tall order, but it can be done. And maybe ask yourself, if I really acknowledge that what is going on is making me feel overwhelmed, then what probably would I do different? Maybe I'll be more self-compassionate. And so it means that I don't have to do everything that I normally do at the same rate. I'll be more self-compassionate with myself, and it will be a good time to just be able to say, okay, at this point, I can't handle this load because the truth is I'm feeling overwhelmed, or I'm feeling anxious, or whatever it is. Yeah? Thirdly, it will be important to acknowledge effort. Just because your expectation was for me to meet 100% of something, during this time, if I meet 50 or 60, it's important to acknowledge effort. Some of these things, especially for the thinking type, will really bring harmony in our homes. So let's look at the feeling type and how they're coping with the pandemic. So one of their strengths is the ability to empathize, as I'd said earlier. These are the people who are checking up on us. There are those friends and family who have taken it upon themselves to check up on us, to carry our emotions with us when we are overwhelmed. They ensure that now they even call many times. Those are the people that who care about us in that way, right? So what are some of the challenges that they may be facing? Now, because when this person is calling me, they're not only calling me, they're calling someone else, they're calling their colleague at work, they're calling, so they might end up carrying the burdens of the world on their shoulders. And obviously that will make them feel overwhelmed. Number one. Number two is that they will tend to make decisions based on emotions. And so they may end up giving people more leeway than is necessary. As much as we are in times that have changed, we also need some sort of normalcy. So there are some things that we still need to do as we were doing. For example, for children, if there was a schedule that they sleep at 7, they eat at 7 and they go to bed at 8. So just because they don't have a class the following day, it doesn't mean that now we can let them, or they can trick us into letting them stay up until midnight. But for the feeling type, it would be very easy to do that and to look at it that way. And so because of that, it's also very easy to be taken advantage of. So some of the helpful strategies that the feeling type can engage is to practice self-care. I need to be okay first before I can carry other people's burdens. What does it mean? Sometimes I will have to refer you to someone else to talk to because I can't talk to you. There are times that I might not pick up my phone because I have given myself this 1 hour or 2 hours or this evening to not engage. I might need to put myself first. Maybe you have a need and I have a need, and I might need to first accomplish my own need first before I can carry yours, right? And then another thing is, especially people in leadership, whether it's a parent or a boss, you need to balance between empathy and being firm. So again, says, for example, with children, right? Okay, so at this point, I also take another break and ask Helen, do we have any interactions on that scale?
Yes, we do, Faith. Very interesting interactions. And I think you touched a nerve somewhere.
Okay.
There are people who are thinkers, and
Okay.
they're in the counseling profession.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a point about empathy and thinkers.
Yes.
And someone is asking, so how do we go about being that I'm a thinker, meaning my empathy is not very high. So, and I'm in the counseling field where I'm always empathizing, required to empathize. How do I go about with that? But on the same point, I'm seeing Esther, she said, I am a thinker and I have worked on myself to the point of respecting other people's feelings and to speak about my emotions. It is not that we don't empathize, but we don't let ourselves be overwhelmed. I know that as a person, I can neglect myself in terms of self-care. And my therapist has helped me to learn to enjoy some self-care without feeling guilty.
Okay, thank you very much. And I identify with those two people. I am also a thinker, and a lot of people have found that very funny. How am I a thinker and I'm a therapist as well? But just like Esther, I had to do a lot of work, a lot of work on myself. So we are saying, as much as we're saying there's a feeling type and there's a thinking type, we don't get stuck and say, this is who I am, and so this is how I'll always operate. There's room for self-awareness, number one, and development. So some of the things that I looked inwards and I didn't like about myself, probably just being very oblivious of people's emotions, I had to work through that. And so for me, empathy is not natural. It doesn't come naturally. It's something I had to learn. So I do identify with the people who are saying they're counselors and they're thinkers. So there are many ways, and I think it's beyond our presentation today, but that's where we say maybe we can have another session to go deeper into this the personality types. As I said today, we're just going to brush through what they mean and the characteristics, but focus more on how they're affecting us during this pandemic. So maybe that's something we can take up on at a later date, but it's a very interesting discussion about that. All right, thank you, Helen, for that, and for everyone else who's sharing their views. So again, we have another couple there, part of what could be causing us to be fighting in our homes. One is a thinker and the other one is a feeler. So probably the feeler had asked for something. The thinker comes with, the rationale and the logic and, about it. These are the pros and these are the cons. And probably from the reaction of the feeler, it seems like the cons are more than the pros. But so the thinker makes decisions based on that list. But for the feeler, it's just about, it's important to me. That's all they probably need at this point for them to. So it's important to balance. Again, not to go on one side, always looking at the pros and cons. There are times we need to give in to something because of an emotion. We cannot ignore the emotions that people are feeling. But also for the feelers, it's important sometimes to look at the logic, right? So let's look at our last scale. So here we have the judging and the perceiving type. So this scale is based on how we tend to deal with the outside world. So the judging type, they prefer structure and firm decisions. They want things to be neat, orderly, and established. These are people who like lists. I don't know if you've heard that joke. There are people who have lists about lists. So I have a list of grocery, list of what, and list of this. And then now I have another list to say all this, which outlines all these lists. Yeah, those are the judging type. And then we have the perceiving, people who prefer perceiving. They lean more, they're more open and flexible and adaptable. We don't need all these rules and regulations. We don't need to be put in a box. In fact, that's one of the things they like to say. They don't like to be put in a box. So let's see how the judging type are dealing with the pandemic. So one of their strengths is that they're able to develop a structure to operate in the new normal. One of the things that we know about this pandemic is that a lot of the structures that we had in place stopped being effective. For example, I wake up in the morning, I take breakfast by this time, or I dress up, I prepare myself, I leave the house by this time, get to the office by this time. So now I'm working from home. What does that look like? And so for a number of us, it threw us off because the structure was not there and we didn't know what to do. But the judging type, they're very good at this, and they're able to develop a structure to help us operate in our new normal. They're also very keen on following rules and regulations, even unsupervised. So in these times of working from home, the bosses will really love the judging type, because even if they're not supervising them, even if they're not asking for constant updates, these people, they know that these employees are doing what they're supposed to be doing. Yeah? The judging type also help us maintain order. And by maintaining order, I mean like a grounding in the face of the chaos or the crisis. So we know what structure does. The pandemic is making so much around us change. I have to remember, if I'm going to the supermarket, I need to do it between this time and this time. Probably I can no longer go to the salon like I used to. What does that mean? So when we have the judging type, they're able to maintain a certain level of normalcy that at least makes me feel, structure and rules give a sense of safety. So if I'm the judging type, or my spouse is the judging type, they're able to offer that during this time where I feel everything is spinning around. Some of the challenges they might have is they can be very inflexible. These people, again, remember I said they have lists. They have plans. These people have 1 year plan, they have 5-year plan, they have 10 years plan. Yeah. So they might be very inflexible on how to navigate in these abnormal circumstances. So again, this close to my second point, where they don't know how to adjust in the face of the disruption that has happened. It's very difficult for them to leave the plan that they had. Yeah. But when they do, that's when we see they're able to organize a structure. But before they do, it becomes a problem. Some of the helpful strategies is that they need to be flexible, the judging type. And when I say they, I mean we. I'm a J as well. It's important to be flexible and to be able to adjust my plan according to the times. So for example, probably one of us here had a timeline to when they will be able to finish the building project that they have. And they are stuck to it. And yet we are in financial difficult times. So it's important to just be flexible and tell myself, this is not real. I had a plan, it was a good plan, it was based on all these things, but something unforeseen that I had not planned for has come. So I'm able to, I need to be able to adjust myself accordingly. They will also be very helpful, the judging type, with creating structures for the new normal. Yeah. So for example, homeschooling has been thrusted upon us. A lot of us did not have the experience of homeschooling, but we're having to do that. And at the same time working from home. So maybe the judging type is this person who will say, okay, we will work, or we'll do the schooling from this time to this time. We will have the breaks at this time. We will identify the different spaces for working, and these spaces will be different from when we are eating or when we're socializing. So these people are able to bring some sort of structure to our family, and we would be very, for the judging type, we are being called upon to bring those structures around. On the contrary, we also have the perceiving type. And some of their strengths is that, remember I said these people are, they roll with the punches, they are very spontaneous. So their ability to adapt will be, or has been much easier than for the judging type. They never had a plan in the first place. So whatever is presented to them is the plan for that time, and that's what they go for. So that means also that they're open to new ideas. So we used to work from the office, we're working from home. Okay. Counseling sessions used to be in person. Now we need to do them online. Okay, they're willing to try. They're willing to break the stereotypes and whatever rules that had been put there. That also now comes with challenges. What we'll find about the perceiving type, they don't like to be put in a box, as I've said that severally. So one of the things they will find difficulty is working within all. And I said all because to them, it may sound like there are 50 rules, even though maybe it's just 1 or 2. So working within all the rules and regulation stipulated for prevention and spreading of spreading of the coronavirus. So they might wonder, why do I have to do this? Why do I have to practice the social distance? Why do I have to be home by this time? How can I not go visit people? Yeah. And so again, tied to the second point, these people again are very impulsive, and so they resist authority. So maybe these other people, not all of them, of course we have genuine cases, but you'll also find these people breaking the rules on curfews. Probably they were not somewhere where it was that important that they had to stay till that time. We are also, maybe we'll find these other people again who have locked themselves in places. We are hearing people are locking themselves and still continuing to indulge in activities that do not adhere to the social distancing. So it's very likely that the people are of the perceiving type. So what are some of the strategies then that these people can employ to help us, to help them navigate through this time? One of the most important things is that they need to develop and work within a structure. As difficult as that may be, this is the time that they're called upon to do that. Yeah. That is the only way to be able at least to accomplish something. The people who are struggling with working from home, because normally when you're in the office, your supervisor is there and they're able to check on you. And then there's just that routine that you're used to. But we are seeing that now you're working from home and anything goes. So we might find ourselves as the perceiving type being very unproductive. Then they also need to understand. So one of the things that they crave for, these perceiving people, it's a freedom. Yeah, these people perceiving are non-conformists. They want to dress in their own fashion. They're very non-conforming. So one of the things, the underlying is the freedom. The underlying desire is freedom to express themselves and to be able to do things the way they want to do. Now, one of the things they need to understand is the sooner we obey the rules, the sooner we stick in our houses when we don't need to be outside, the sooner we do all these things, is the sooner that they will be able to enjoy the freedom that they so much desire. So in a picture, again, if it was a couple, this is how they would be looking like. So they're talking about the same thing, but you can see how their expressions are totally different. The lady is saying, she's very happy, saying she made a schedule for every day of their vacation. To her, that's the way they'll maximize their vacation. For the husband, he's getting he's out of, he can't believe it. How? It's a vacation. How again do we have a schedule? So when at the beginning I say how our personality types get us to clash, again, these are some of the ways. All right, Helen, again, I want to give this back to you, but before I do, maybe again, just to summarize and say, for those people who've never interacted with the personality types, these are how they look. These are the 16 personality types. They are abbreviated ISTJ. It means that's an introverted, he's a sensing type, thinker, and a judging type. So I will not go through all that, but for those who will be willing, they'll communicate with Helen. This presentation will be shared. right? So I just wanted to show those are the 16 personality types, the 16 combinations of what we've been talking about. So you can have an extrovert who is a sensing type, is a thinker, and is a judging type, and any other combination, right? And so that's the end of my presentation. And I would like to invite the questions as they come in. Again, I want to take this back to Helen. Helen, did people say something about judging and perceiving from the chat?
Well, about judging and perceiving, I was just laughing at the final the final slide, because I was thinking I've gone for workshops with people who have a plan for everything, and I'm like, what's wrong with you? I'm on vacation. I'm on vacation, for goodness sake. So I think I want to open it up. It has been a very interesting interactive discussion. People have been commenting and participating and giving their input. Yes, so I think I want to open it up to anybody who has a question. Oh yeah, earlier on there was a question. Somebody was asking, given the personality, maybe we can discuss how does this affect the people who are on the frontline workers? How do we think they are affected? And this is something maybe we can also hear from other psychologists or anybody who is in the front line. How does your personality affect how you work, or you perceive this whole thing, more so when you're in the front line work? Yes.
Do we have any takers? I'd also like to hear, probably there's someone who's on the front line, or they know someone on the front line. You can unmute yourself and share with us.
Hi everyone. My name is Becky. I work with the Gender Violence Recovery Center. I can say I'm in the front line, especially dealing with the survivors of GBV, which is very, again, emotional. And I'm looking at all that, all those personality, especially the feeling type. And with these cases of gender-based violence on the increase, yet you also understand there is lockdown and you're there trying to feel for everyone. What would I say? It's not easy. It's not an easy thing. And I like there's someone who said they dealt with it. And what we have realized right now is the need to keep on looking for support now and then, even before, support now and then, than how we were looking for that support earlier on. Because we are at the frontline workers, we are affected just like the way everyone is affected. And again, you are here, you need to support these people who are again affected. And so we are dealing with a sarad of emotions. And again, now personally, I'm an extrovert with all the feeling type. So if I don't seek for support now and then, I might find myself or our team, we are immersed in the whole Mickey, and the emotions of the country and of our survivors might carry us through. So there is need to seek for support, and that's what we are doing, especially now. Thank you.
I've muted on myself. My name is Vespas. Again, I know Helen, definitely, you know, definitely I have to speak. Because one, I'm a sanguine. Two, an extrovert and an intuitive. I want to thank Faith for this presentation. It was just come in hand. I just want to share a small experience. I had to clash with the people in the Ministry of Health where I work. And that's why I'm saying that I think this presentation has come in handy because I reason a bit, because after they have been telling people about doping and buffing, PPE, they are telling people to go to quarantine to go and manage those clients. And there's some health workers, because of fear and what you're talking about, the personality, some people have just said not to go because of the fears of their families and the fears of themselves. And you realize that I was asked as a counselor to prepare a slide or a presentation on dealing with health workers' attitude. And now I was asking myself, I do a presentation dealing with health workers' attitude. Is it the time to do a presentation on health workers' attitude or to support health? I guess they are still also struggling with their own personalities type that you're talking about today. And now, as you shared, I just felt so good that I needed to pat myself on the back because I refuse doing that because it's not about the issues about their values or the what they are feeling about the managers, because they are feeling that these people, they don't want to go. They have learned a lot. They are health workers. Why did they decide to come and be health workers? Why are they nurses? Why are they doctors? And why are they refusing to run one? But in any sense, you saw what Faith, you have opened our eyes and because these people are really struggling.
Vespas, we seem to have lost you. Can you hear us? Can you hear me? Okay. Helen, maybe you can take it back.
Okay, thank you very much, Faith. I would like to respond to the people who are requesting for the notes or the slides. I've said in the message, if you want the notes or the slides, you send 100 shillings only, the number 0721 676554, which is basically to help us enhance and continue with the sessions. Back to you, Faith.
Repeat the number, please.
I'm going to post the number in the chat.
Okay.
Okay, all right. Helen, I was pretty much done with my presentation, but let me just take this opportunity to thank everyone for tuning in. I don't know what we say for videos, but for just signing in and for being very interactive. I was seeing the chat on fire. So I'm very grateful for all of you to have had your audience. I have shared my contact. My contact will be on the slide. When you get the presentation. So if you need to get in touch with me, that's my number. All right, back to you, Helen, and thank you, Helen, for this platform. As counselors, I think it's really enriching. Thank you.
Thank you, Faith. I think I'm an intuitive. I began this just while I'm sitting at home and thinking, what do I do with this time? So I'm glad it has become helpful and productive. And thank you to everybody who has been tuning in during the sessions. There were so many messages and responses. I wouldn't know where to begin to respond. But Liz Kimondo says, awesome presentation, Faith. Thank you. Clear and very articulate, Helen. Oh, your moderating was also on point. And yes, if we can have another in-depth study with personality types, and especially for parents dealing with homeschooling, and also helping with very, very young children, how to deal with the new normal. Those about to sit for the exams, how do parents deal with their different types and their own too? Okay. Someone else is saying, Lorna is saying, I can hardly wait to use the MBTI chart and see where I stand. Thank you, Faith, for this meeting. Okay, so there were so many responses and so much feedback. Thank you very much, people. Please ensure the ones who are sending their 100 shillings, please send your email address as well, so that I can be able to email to you the notes. Thank you very, very much.